All right, we're going to get started. I'm Matthew Stewart. I'm Chief Product Officer at Nourish. On the stage with me is Paul Skuse, the Product Manager on a product we call Transparency that's launching this week. We had a little bit of a snafu starting the day. Our regular scheduled presenter, unfortunately, is stuck in traffic. Until 8 minutes ago, Paul and I didn't know that we were actually doing this presentation. So we're going to sort of wing it and we'll see how it goes. But I thought I'd fall back on something my primary school teacher taught me, and you should start every presentation with a joke. So, just, I'm here mostly to warm up the audience. Paul's going to do the heavy lifting. All right, so what days of the week are the strongest days? Saturday and Sunday, because every other day is a weekday. Thank you. All right, one more, run a roll. What do aliens eat? Unidentified frying objects.
What?
Okay.
So that's unusual.
Yeah, thank you. I can get this go all week now. I could kill 30 minutes like this. Which now makes whatever Paul says feel so much better. So we're going to start with, again, we're talking about a new product. We're talking about sort of dependency in this sector and what that looks like. Here's a number, 4.4 billion is a projected funding gap for 23-24. Now, that's one estimate. How many people believe that's the right number by show of hands? How many think it's more? How many think it's less? How many believe that's the spot-on number?
Yeah.
So there's one right there. There you go. The interesting thing is when we talk to people across the sector consistently, the argument is this is certainly an estimate, but most people come back with, we don't have any freaking idea, right? We really just don't know what that number looks like because we don't have any, for lack of a better term, transparency on what that number looks like. And so what we set out to do with this is this notion, again, the way we sort of operate is this is a windshield with that's fogged over. So we don't really know where we're going. We don't have transparency in what we can do. We can't see the future. We don't know really whether we are provisioned with the right level of care to support the need. We don't understand what that true cost of care is. The way we do it today is a quite cumbersome process between manual process, Excel spreadsheets, potentially black box algorithms that you don't understand and can't interpret. And so we've tried to tackle that problem and make it much more open, much more transparent, much more so that yourself, commissioners, families, the person receiving care, all have a common base of understanding of what that cost of care is and how that cost of care, more importantly, not what it is at any point in time, but also how that care evolves over time. And with that, I will kick it off to Paul for the really important stuff.
Thanks, Matt.
And if you need more jokes, let me know.
Okay. Thank you. Good to have that on standby. So we've been working with a few co-development partners for probably almost the last year. And this is one of the messages that came back when we were doing some of the initial interviews. So we don't know the true cost of needs for someone until they've been with us for a few weeks. And so we start to see them get used to being in a home maybe for the first time. And we start to really understand that person. So that often means running at a loss and with a lot of risks attached to it. And anecdotally, something that we hear as well from the social workers is sometimes we may get packages of care that maybe don't quite look like the person that actually joins us. To Matt's point earlier, another quote that we had from one of our other co-development partners was saying it's really common for us to have people join us on day one, and then they leave us 2 years later. Either they pass away or move to another service, and they are still on exactly the same package of care that they were when they started with us. So we wanted to start looking at those problems. So without something like transparency or a way to measure this, things start to go wrong. So financially, it becomes really difficult for us to make good business decisions on actually what does the cohort look like? What's the people that we have in our home? Are we taking on too many people with too high needs? Do we have too few people with high needs, etc.? So we need to be able to understand what that mix is that we have in the service. Operationally, and this is something we're really excited about, I'll show you in a second how this is linked to our interactions, but because staff rotors are stretched, we know that. I remember I used to be a registered manager, so I remember this feeling of like the mornings are incredibly busy And then things kind of quieten down a little bit. And then things get very, very busy again at lunchtime, slightly quieter, and then very, very busy in the afternoons. We really wanted something that could start tackling that space. So start showing you what does it look like across a day. Oh, sorry. And then finally, for the people themselves, families and funding bodies losing trust that the support we provide isn't always consistent, and it comes from a model that we don't understand and we can't interrogate. So to Matt's point, this black box algorithm that we can't explain to people easily. So we had a few things that we really wanted to tackle, that were the outcomes that we wanted. So the main one was making care planning clear and consistent. So we've created an assessment that goes to the front end of the process, and it's something that your teams would do every day anyway. So we need to bring somebody into our service and get them started with transparency, or get them started using our service. We need to plan a timeline for them, and we need to understand what care and support activities they require. And we can show you this in a bit more detail in a second. We also wanted something really transparent. So we wanted something that would connect that assessment to the things that happen every day. So the things that your staff and your teams genuinely do, and how you deliver the care and support that you do within your services. And we have both of those two things that allows you to have a much more confident conversation with your regulators. So we're able to say, this is what we've assessed for, this is what's actually happening today, and we can connect those two things so that if you need to explain to a regulator why I have 20 staff instead of 25 or instead of 18, we can say, this is literally what my team are doing this morning, and this is the packages that we've assessed for. The responding to changing needs is a really interesting one for us. It was really important that we built this at the heart of Nourish. And for those of you who do, how many people Nourish users already or use Nourish? Okay, so quite a few. So if I'm talking about interactions, some people know what I mean, maybe some people don't. But effectively, we have a timeline of things that happen in a person's day. For us, because we're connecting this assessment to those things, it means we can track change really, really well. So if you were looking at, how many times a person maybe requires hoisting in a day, or how many transfers, or how many incidents of personal care and continence, you can see that literally changing in real time. We know for lots of people, people's conditions progress, their needs change. And so that's really important. We can show that in the data. And then lastly, this understanding of the true cost of care. So we have an assessment that allows you to create a package of care that you can get behind and say, this is what we're delivering. So this is what our assessment looks like. Really simple and straightforward. And we're really assessing for three things as we're going through. So what type of care and support activities does the person require? So which interactions is it that are actually going to come onto the person's timeline? And this creates it for you. So once that's done, it creates those interactions and pushes them to the timeline. So which things is it that you need? How long is that going to take? So what is that value that you need? How long is it going to take? How often does it need to happen? And how many people is it for? We're really asking to put that up front, that process that you would do anyway when you're personalizing a timeline. And we've grouped them together into these areas we're calling domains to make it a really natural conversation, whether that's with a social worker, whether that's with a family, whether it's with the person themselves or a collection of people. We wanted it to feel really natural, very intuitive to use.
And go back maybe and just talk about the configurability of the time.
Yeah, thanks for that. So, and because all of this is built on interactions, we have a load that come out of the box. So for those of you who know Nourish, we call them Nourish libraries. Well, this is also completely agnostic to the things that you bring in. So if you have particular interactions that you use that isn't something that Nourish provide, it's literally, you can just go into the back end. It takes you 2 or 3 minutes and it's there in the assessment straight away. So if there's something that you want to add to this, you can add it. If there's something you want to take away, you can take those away. If those values that you see, so as we go through here, it gives you different minute values. If they don't look quite right and you want to tweak them for your service, you can. But a whole lot comes out of the box. So it's there, it's ready, you can use it straight away. If you want to dig into the detail and you want to make it more customizable, you can. And so once we understand that, we understand what packages of care, which interactions people are going to be delivering every day, we can then start to tell you, okay, well, what does that look like in terms of your FTEs, your full-time equivalents? So how many staff do we require operationally to do that? There is one modifier in the background to tell you, okay, well, it sounds really crude. How efficient are those teams when they're on shift? So when you've taken out things like handovers and breaks and things like that, you then get this uplifted FTE that tells you how you can right size your service. So how many teams do we need to deliver that specific care? And then when we look at a funding view, we can then take those same FTEs. You can input your own staffing costs, so your unit costs, so how much you're paying your teams plus your national insurance, your own costs, and then get to the beginning of a package of care and a funded package. And then you can break that down into all your different sections. So when you're explaining to commissioners or funding bodies, we're really talking about not an abstract assessment that we have over here that's a third-party thing that then we bring in and then we try and fudge it. It's like we're all talking about the same thing. The assessment literally is what you add to the timeline, and then we cost against those. So I know the transparency sort of term is, we wanted it to be really transparent. It sounds a bit cheesy, but that was something Matt and I genuinely talked about at the beginning. We wanted to open all of this up so that there's no algorithms, there's no places where it can get confusing. So you can explain this really easily. And here we can do things like start to show you, where you have particular deficits maybe, or where things, maybe where you have slight surpluses with people so that you can make good decisions about the people that are in your care. So for us, the three bits that are next. So understanding that demand. So as we're mapping it on interactions, you can see how those interactions are logged across the day. So you can go in and literally see, you can come and talk to us on the stand about this a little bit later. So you can go in, say between 6 and 7 o'clock, and find out exactly what your team are doing at that particular time of day, who they're supporting, what they're supporting with, and what the cost of that is. We just see that fluctuate over time as you go through. Being able to share that gives staff and families, we've had a really good response so far from people, understanding how we can then talk about that with families, funding bodies, or what have you. And then being able to use it to make better decisions. Some of the groups we've got using it at the moment, one group in particular we've got are talking about how they currently got 12-hour shifts. That's the standard. How many people have that kind of model where you kind of have a shift start at 8 o'clock and finish at 8 o'clock in the evening? Is that lots of people, just a few? The most people have sort of dynamic shift patterns. It's kind of a mint. Anyway, with this particular group, they were talking about we have a start at 8, we finish at 8. But actually, when I was seeing this data, we can start to see how things fluctuate across the day. We start thinking about how we can have maybe more staff on in the mornings when it's really, really busy, more staff on in the evenings, and talk to our staff team about how we can have a better mix of staffing as we go through. So if we have people, you have their mums and dads that need to pick people up from school, great, they can work a shorter shift. We can then use that time in the evenings and start moving things around. So we get a better mix of staff rather than having these very, very long shifts, which can be a little inefficient.
I guess it's probably joke time, Paul.
No more jokes, please, Matt.
All right. Well, that was it. Thanks for coming.